right, we're here at the outdoor bin, and this is the 20th day of the third tray, which is the topmost tray. And you might be able to see here as I'm getting some of the worms off the ceiling of the lid that we've got some bread here. And that bread is to try and get some of these mites, these red mites that are in here. So let's see if you can get a good look at the mites. Anyway, using some bread to bait them. And what I do is just throw this bread away. You can see the worms on the top there, they enjoy it. Especially as the bread gets moist, they get in on the action too. But it definitely gets a lot of mites. In fact, I'm going to take these worms off here and I'm going to just throw this newspaper away because it has a lot of mites on it. And I'll just replace it. I have no shortage of newspaper. So I don't know if you can see, but right there, there's just a lot of mites. So we'll just make sure there's nothing underneath. I don't see any little worms on here, which is good. I certainly see a lot of mites. And all right, so our last feeding was 11 days ago. And we'll just kind of dig around. I had some watermelon that I put in here in addition to the feeding. And I have, in between the feeding, kind of dug around just because I wanted to see how the watermelon was doing. And as you can see, they have eaten through that whole feeding that we gave them last time, about 11 days ago. I don't see any remnants of, like a wood piece, but any remnants of the apple, the green, shredded kale from our juicing. I don't even see any of the banana peels, some banana stem. But I did realign the, oh, there's some banana peel. I did realign the watermelon back in here, so I think this is what's kind of left of the watermelon. I have definitely enjoyed that. Not bad for a little over 11 days because I put those in before the last feeding. But they are definitely enjoying that watermelon. And I should probably look over here. I think I may have a jumper. I'm gonna make sure it comes back in. There we go. And I did put a paper towel in there, and it is being consumed and eaten along with everything else. I think it was a little bit more intact when I dug through here and I shredded it up a little bit, but really impressed with how they take care of those paper towel rolls and toilet paper rolls. But yeah, I'm feeling, here's more of that grape stem that was put in a few feedings ago. But yeah, overall, they have just absolutely devoured this watermelon from the inside out. I mean, there are worms all over this watermelon, what's left of it. So I'm just gonna kind of set that to the side. Here's a kind of a worm ball right here. Love watching those worm balls, seeing them, feeling them wriggle in my hand, and it's obviously something they liked at that point. Yeah, here's what's left of one of the pieces of watermelon, just the peel itself. So I'm just gonna kind of aerate out here a little bit more. Let's see what kind of worm ball we got here. aerate out a little bit more, and then we'll be ready to put the feeding in. This should be a pretty big feeding, and I may give some watermelon in between this feeding and the next one. They absolutely devour it. Let's see if I can remember to put these watermelon pieces in as I'm doing the feeding. And I'm going to try and make the feeding zone a little bit wider too, just to kind of give more surface area of the material. In order to facilitate, more worms getting to it, not having to dig through into a deep pile of just food scraps. But yeah, this Vermihut is working out pretty well. I'm not as much of a passive user as probably most people that have one of these. Throughout the week, I lift the lid every single time. And, I lift the lid and just take a peek every day. Occasionally I'll take the lid off and just kind of help aerate the moisture level. One thing I do like about this bin is, well, there's many things, but the fact that you really can't screw up the moisture level as far as having them swimming in moisture, because it gravity feeds down to the lower portion that has a basin. So that's a good thing, but it's still sometimes really moist, and I think excess moisture can breed some of the more mites than you really want in there. But I do go into the bins below this. This is the third tray. I keep saying bins, but bins, trays. This is the third tray on this tower. And I do go through the very bottom one, which is pretty much finished castings. And I'll dig around. There's worms in there. Not nearly as many as the ones up here, but I help aerate it. Again, just kind of checking everything. This one's got a sticker on it, so I'll take care of that later. Here's a banana stem. So yeah, I'll aerate it, dig around. Same thing with the second tray, and I may do that every other week, just to kind of see how things are going down there. And I freeze my food. Now this is not frozen because I left it out overnight, so it's just soft and moist, and the worms are just gonna probably attack it right away. But I'm gonna give them a fairly large feeding. Here's a peach that had gone bad. Obviously I'd rather be eating most of the food, the extra scraps you see. I'd rather eat them than feed them to the worms, but this is the stuff that comes out of the juicer, and then the banana peels, which I'm not gonna be eating banana peels anytime soon. So the peach, and then the strawberry tops, things like that. No brainer to compost with your worms, and they seem to enjoy it. But yeah, so this is pretty hefty feeding here, which is just fine. I think that'll about do it. I estimated this entire feeding to be about 2.5 pounds, and I have 2 pounds of worms in here, about 2,000 worms, and I hear different estimates. They can eat half their weight in a day, or their full weight in a day, and under ideal conditions, maybe. These probably are not ideal conditions, because although they do consume it, and I guess they're eating some of the bedding too, but they're not going to eat 2 pounds a day, from what I've observed anyway. But part of that 2 pounds, I guess, is the coffee grounds, like I'm putting on right here, the eggshells and the paper that you see here. You can see this is coffee grounds. Got some mold in them, but no issues there, because they eat that up too. Seem to enjoy it. And then I'll put some pulverized eggshells, which is just some grit for their gizzards, for their digestive system to help them take care of all this food we're giving them. Especially since there's not a whole lot of sand or native soil or stuff that they can readily get. There's a worm right there. So we'll just, there we go. I knew I was going to forget it, but there's the watermelon. We'll just make sure that we bury it, even though we have a lid. I always bury the food just to make sure there's no smells, and I've never had any issues with smells. It just kind of smells like being in a damp forest, just earthy kind of smell, like a fresh garden. And you can't smell anything when you got the lid on, when you have the lid on. So, much to my wife's chagrin, this is an indoor bin. She wants to move it to the garage, and eventually she may win that argument. But for now, it's indoors. So if you like this video, appreciate a like, hit the thumbs up button. I'd appreciate that, and possibly subscribe to the channel. But that will about do it for this third feeding of the third tray of my Vermihut indoor bin. Hope you all have a great day. Take care.